Hello, everyone. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to admit, this was supposed to be a free-to-play fundamentals talk, but then the more I worked on it, the more I realized I wanted to talk about misconceptions, so it kind of turned into a free-to-play misconceptions talk. I hope you're okay with that. If you're not okay with that, you can yell at me later. So the first misconception I wanted to talk about is, oh, and actually, you guys may not know, my company made Triple Town, Alpha Bear, Bushido Bear. We just released Alpha Bear 2. We made a game called Realm of the Mad God. Those are all free-to-play games. Some of them reached huge audiences. Most of them didn't make all that much money. We're trying to get better at that. I think we've finally gotten a little bit better at that. So anyway, okay, free-to-play misconceptions. So the first one is people will donate nicely. People will donate to you if you just ask nicely and take all the free-to-play stuff out of your game. I hear this all the time. It's a really common misconception. You'll hear it most particularly from like the vocal minority in any game. They'll just say, if you would just take out all this free-to-play crap, we would just give you money. We actually tried this many, many years ago because we like to do these kinds of experiments, and it failed miserably. We made basically no money. I know lots of other indies have tried it. Virtually all of them have also failed. There are like one like in a million examples where like they actually make good money taking donations, and that ends up fooling everybody. Please don't do this. Like, don't assume that you can basically do no work to make money and just ask for donations and you'll be fine. People give donations because they see like a picture of a starving child in their Facebook feed or because their friend has cancer. Those are the things that cause people to give donations. They don't go give donations to you because your game is fun. Like that almost never works. So please don't do that. The second misconception is that any game can be profitable if you simply sell aesthetic items only, which are like items that make you look good or like show you dancing or whatever, and not a functional benefit in any way. And that obviously is a misconception as well. It depends on the game. So in particular, it depends if it's a multiplayer game. Like if you have a multiplayer game where there's a lot of person-to-person interaction, people can see your character doing certain things, then yeah, it makes perfect sense. You can show off for other people. You can dress nicely for other people. You can do a dance move for other people. So it makes sense to buy stuff. When you're in a single player game where nobody can see you, it doesn't really make sense to spend a lot of money on aesthetic items. It can work. I mean, it's not, these are all like sort of general rules, right? I'm sure there's an exception that proves the rules somewhere. But for the most part, it's a really bad idea to make a single player game and then try to make all your money selling aesthetic goods. In general, even in multiplayer games, like in our upcoming Steambirds, excuse me, our Steambirds Alliance game, which is based on an MMO we made called Realm of the Mad God. That's a highly, highly real-time multiplayer game. In theory, we could make money selling only aesthetic items, but we also sell functional ones that are designed not to make it easier to win or to like beat other people, but just to make your game playing experience more convenient. Like we'll sell inventory storage, so you can like, if you want to be a pack rat and save more items, you don't have to. But it makes the game a little bit more convenient and a little bit more fun if you can be a pack rat and store more stuff. So we sell you that. And that sells really, really, really well, even though it's not a pay-to-win item. So in general, I highly recommend not deciding that you're just going to sell aesthetic goods unless you have a multiplayer game that can really support, like really potentially support that. And even then, be aware that for the most part, the games that make a lot of money doing that tend to be these sort of like massive cultural phenomenons like League of Legends. And like in general, my argument is if you're betting that you're going to be the next League of Legends, like maybe you have an overconfidence problem. That's kind of my way of thinking about it. So the next misconception, that you can divide gamers into either they're hardcore or they're casual. I think this is nonsense. And in fact, I think almost every bucketing nowadays is harmful. Like I'm not a fan of another bucket of saying, people in the United States have different attitudes about free-to-play than people in China. Like sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on the genre. It depends on the target group that you're targeting. So no, in general, no to all this stuff. And let me give you a concrete example of where this might break down. If you look at the word game audience, which is something I'm very, very familiar with, you might say, oh, okay, that's clearly a casual audience, right? Like it's mostly women, like a majority women who play them, more adults than kids, on and on and on. That must be a casual audience. Well, what are the stereotypes we have about casual gamers? They don't like complicated games, and they don't like competition. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. Scrabble, in particular, and Words with Friends, the modern incarnation, has basically trained generations of word gamers to lust for blood. Like, they want to crush the competition. It's amazing how much they want it. And so we make single-player word games, and we know for a fact that it's hurting our retention. We get feedback all the time from people who are like, I love this game, but I would love it so much more if you had any sort of competition in it. So right now, we're working on putting a tournament feature into Alpha Bear 2, because these people want to compete. including, whatever stereotype you want to conjure up, the 50-year-old, 60-year-old grandma, who only plays Scrabble. Like, she likes beating people. So, don't fall for this trap of like people are hardcore, or people are casual, or like it. Just focus on who it is that you're trying to serve and try to understand them better. The people I'm trying to serve for Alphabet 2 are people who like word games and cute things. And those people happen to like competition also in many cases. I don't call them casuals. And this, by the way, is a great example of this. It's one of the few screenshots I have in here. This is a game called Love Nikki, which was hugely inspiring to the people in our studio, because a lot of developers who we respect, designers who we respect, were telling us, you cannot make a complex RPG for your target market. You just can't. It won't work. You need to keep it super simple. It needs to be easy to learn, hard to master. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. It's just got to be easy to learn, hard to master, and you have to like go with a Candy Crush style monetization. You can't do anything more than that. You want to do Puzzle and Dragon for casual gamers? You're crazy. This game, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is a game about acquiring clothing and then having dress battles. Like, that's what you do. You have little dress up battles. I cannot tell you how amazing this game is to me. It is so complicated. There are so many currencies and affinities and various things that play into whether you're going to succeed in a battle. And this game is played, as far as I know, I don't have all the details because they're not made public, but like as far as I know, the audience is overwhelmingly female, pretty broad in terms of age range, and it makes a ton of money. It doesn't make any sense if you follow the whole stereotypes of like what a casual gamer is willing to tolerate. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. But this game is really successful. And the fact that it was successful gave us the courage to make a fairly complicated metagame in Alphabet 2. I don't know if we would have been willing to if we didn't know something like this existed. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. Another misconception. There's a few lucky developers who can rely on primo featuring by Apple and Google to succeed. They don't really need anything else aside from making their good game. That's no longer true either. It used to be true. And I'm speaking from experience. We've been very lucky as a developer. Everything we've ever made has gotten a really great feature by at least Apple or Google, and oftentimes both. But to put this in perspective, when Alphabet 1 came out not that long ago, we got, in the first few weeks after it was out, 1 million downloads. And that was with one really good feature and one okay feature. When Bushido Bear came out, same thing. Over 1 million downloads in the first few weeks. When Alphabet 2 came out, which was just a couple months ago, we got better support in terms of overall support. Like, both platforms supported us very strongly, which isn't always the case. And yet we only got a few 100,000 downloads in the same time period. That's with the best feature we could have asked for. We literally could not have asked for any better from either side. It's just the nature of the beast. Things have changed. The market is more competitive now. The Google Play and the App Store themselves have fundamentally changed in a few different ways. And you basically cannot rely on features to be a success anymore. You have to, at the end of the day, and I think Mike was talking about this earlier on his panel, you have to have an LTV that enables you to play the user acquisition game. You have to be making at least 50 cents, $1 per user on average. And if the number depends on the nature of your audience and the cost of acquisition for users in that audience. But the bottom line is, if you're not making a decent amount of money per user, you're going to fall flat. This has been a very hard realization for us. As a company, we've always been really, really focused on just trying to make the best game we can and not worrying too much about the money and then hoping that we'll be rewarded for it. And that doesn't work anymore. So basically, almost all of our effort now in Alphabet 2 is going into trying to raise up the LTV of our users, which is not, to be perfectly honest, the most fun part of game development, at least not for us. But it's that or die. And so we're trying to figure out how can we do that kind of work and still enjoy what we do for a living. And there are some creative ways to do it. Like, so in Alphabet 2, for example, you can get rewards for watching ads in this mode called TV Time. And when you watch those ads, your avatar and his companion Doc Bear are sitting there, and they literally crap all over the ads that you're watching. Like, they have like critical commentary about it. And like, that made me feel better. Like, I almost don't care if like our users like it, although they do, by the way. It made me feel better about it. So, whatever it takes, figure out what makes you feel better about monetization, and then take it super, super seriously. Because if you don't, you're gonna fall flat. So another misconception. with compelling enough content and IP, you can sell content packs to succeed, and that's really all you need to sell. That's mostly false too. So I'm sure all of you guys remember Mario Run. It's like, oh, Mario is finally coming to mobile. Oh my God, it's going to be an enormous success. How can it not be an enormous success? It wasn't an enormous success, it turns out. Or at least it wasn't a big enough success that Nintendo's willing to do something like that again. It's really hard, it turns out, to get people to pay just for like what they see as a content pack. I don't fully understand why, to be completely honest with you. I've not spent enough time thinking about it to really understand it. But it's not the most successful monetization scheme. It's one of the easiest ones, which is why it's so tempting for developers to do it. It's like, oh, sure, like I'll make 300 more levels, which I can have a content team do in a month or two, and then I'll put them out there for $10. So because it's so straightforward, it's very tempting. It doesn't tend to work. There are exceptions that, again, that prove the rule, but it doesn't tend to be the most successful model. So be wary of this one. Another misconception, players will only tolerate opt-in ads. This was, by the way, a misconception that I had until very, very recently. It's false. But it's false in the same way a lot of the things I've been talking about is false. It's false depending on your audience. There are some audiences for which this is almost certainly true. My guess is that if you tried to make a game like Fortnite and you put in forced interstitials into it, that you would fail miserably. Because my guess is, since Fortnite users are not accustomed to that, they would be furious with you. They'd be like, why am I going to play this piece of crap that forces me to watch ads when I can go play Fortnite? But on the other hand, if you're trying to make a word game, like I was with Alpha Bear 2, well, let's go look at what the #1 word game is. The #1 word game on Google Play currently is a game called Wordscapes. Oh, interesting. After almost every level, it's making me watch a video ad. What the heck? And they're still #1. And apparently they have a great rating and they're making good money. So even though I knew that, I couldn't believe it. Like, I just could not internalize the fact that forced interstitials would be okay, because I personally dislike them so much. And so we launched without them. We didn't have them in the game. And then we were disappointed after a ton of work on rewarded video. Like, we spent weeks and weeks trying to make our rewarded video, like the TV time thing that I mentioned earlier. We spent weeks and weeks trying to make that compelling, and it didn't really work out. We had some views, but not nearly as many as we needed to survive. So finally, some friends of mine hit me over the head hard enough, and they were like, you really need to try the forced interstitials. And I'm like, fine. Okay. But even then, we were so worried about it that we did an A/B test. We weren't willing to just put them in the game. So we had some users in the A/B test seeing interstitials after basically every game, and some users seeing them very rarely. So now I can tell you factually, because I A/B tested it, there was 0 difference in retention. Like, literally 0. None. The people who saw them all the time retained just as well as the people who didn't barely see them. And then, interestingly enough, we didn't have a control group where you didn't get forced interstitials at all, just because we were worried about dividing up our audience too much. But we compared our pre-test retention to our post-test retention. At most, maybe we lost like 0.5% retention or something. Like, it was meaningless. Like, so long story short, for our audience at least, forced interstitials were completely fine and helped us make a lot more money. Like, am I saying, like, please don't leave this lecture and see, like, and think David Edery said put forced interstitials in every game. Absolutely not. Figure out if your audience is okay with them. And then the next question is, even then maybe you don't want to do it. Maybe you can find some other way to make money without them. But if you can't, if you end up in the boat we were in, where we were like, ah, crap, no one's watching our ads and we already spent weeks working on this, maybe. Some other tips. Moving on from misconceptions. This is just a brief one. It doesn't really actually have that much to do with free-to-play, but I really want to mention it because it's that important. We use a service called Playtest Cloud, which is a place where we can upload an APK, and then we'll get a video back of the person playing our game, and we can see where they're touching, and they actually speak what they're thinking as they're doing it. So like if they get confused, they're like, I'm confused right now. What's going on? And you know exactly what's going on in their head. It's a godsend. It's so unbelievably useful. I don't know if you have other ways. Like if you, by some miracle, have access to like a great playtest lab, great. I mean, obviously use that. And of course, I do things all the time, even with stuff like this. I'll like go to neighbors and watch them play and things like that. But I cannot tell you how useful it is, particularly in how hyper-competitive the free-to-play market is today. Your first 30 minutes to 60 minutes of gameplay have to basically be flawless, because that's what you're competing against. You're competing against, you know, companies that have flawless 60-minute experiences because they have infinite money and can do that. They can tune and tune and tune. And I don't know of any other way to get there aside from using a service like this for a company like ours. I mean, we don't even have an office. I don't have anywhere to invite people to do playtesting. So this thing is a godsend for us. We will constantly be surprised by what by what people are confused by. I mean, Alpha Bear 2 was not all that different in the first 30 minutes from Alpha Bear 1, and we were still shocked at the number of things in Alpha Bear 2's first 60 minutes that caused people to freak out and get totally confused. So anyway, highly recommend checking it out if you don't already have a playtesting solution. Second thing, and this is more specific to free-to-play. I'm back to being on topic. Offer walls can be surprisingly effective. So I don't know about you guys. And of course, an offer wall is the like, hey, it pops up a list of games, you download them, you get some free coins in my game. My first experience with offer walls was several years ago. I thought they sucked. Like, they had all kinds of technical problems. They tended not to work well. They didn't make me all that much money. It wasn't worth the headache. So I kind of had this idea that offer walls were terrible. And then I had a couple of friends with Alpha Bear 2 tell me, look, they've gotten much better. You should try it. And I was like, okay, fine, twist my arm. And so we spent like 6 weeks or whatever. I don't even remember the amount of time. It was probably more than that, like trying to make our rewarded video awesome. And we put this in like 2 days. And we put no effort into making it compelling. We like buried it in like the store menu, and like that was that. And it makes as much money as the rewarded video does. Like, even though I put no effort into it whatsoever, which is kind of both wonderful and horrible. But you know, that's game development. So, so if you have written off offer walls like we did, you might want to check them out. They can actually make a decent amount of money, and they don't seem to be as sucky as they used to. And then lastly, and this is probably the most important tip I'll give you, is that I think it's vital that if you're planning on borrowing elements from the metagame of a free-to-play game that you've been inspired by, you have to play it for months before you do that. I've actually talked to a bunch of I have some friends who are consultants who like, for a living, they just give advice to other people on free-to-play game design. And several of them have told me this is one of the #1 mistakes they see their customers make, which is why I wanted to close my lecture with this. I've noticed this myself too. You'll have someone who'll be like, oh yeah, I played, you know, I'll mention a game that I've actually played a lot and really enjoy, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I played it for a week. I thought it was awesome. I really like what they do with whatever, fill in the blank. We're going to put that in our game. Well, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is a game that evolves tremendously over months of play. If you've been playing it for a week, you have literally no idea what you're doing. Like, you cannot copy that game effectively. You cannot copy a piece of it effectively. You may, for example, see where they, you know, it's like, oh, okay, there's 3 places in the game where they sell things for hard currency. That must be where they get all their revenue. Maybe. Or maybe those 3 things are actually not really that big a deal. Maybe there's a 4th thing coming 4 weeks from now that you haven't even unlocked yet. And it's actually where the majority of the revenue comes from, but you don't know because you haven't gotten to that point in the meta yet. This is less of an issue for games, the more simple games out there, like the hyper-casual stuff that tends to be pretty straightforward, but particularly for things that have like a fairly complicated metagame, like Love Nikki, for example, that I was mentioning earlier, you just can't. You absolutely can't play that game for less than several months if you really want to deeply understand it. It does not matter how smart you are. I worked with some really smart people. A lot of them were super confused by how these games made money until they played them for 6 months. Like, you have to do this. I please, if nothing else you remember from this lecture, remember this. Like, and the thing is that I've heard a lot of people say when I tell them these kinds of things, but I don't like it enough to play it for that long. And then it's like, why are you making a game like that then? What are you thinking? Like, don't make something that you dislike so much that you can't bear playing it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You're not going to do a good job, right? So seriously, like, either decide you're going to find a way to like it or move on and do something else. But that is the worst excuse I've ever heard for like doing a half-assed job of copying a feature out of some other game. And I hear it a lot, actually. And by the way, the reason I included these screenshots is because this is just showing the event system from Alpha Bear 2. The screenshot that says Live to Eat is basically the entry, like that's the sort of entry portal to one of our events. And then the screenshot on the right is a bundle. It's a bundle designed to help you succeed in that event. That is something that I was directly inspired by the way they monetize events in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It's been hugely successful for us. Like, we've made quite a lot of money with this specific feature. I don't think I would have thought of this specific implementation without having played Star Wars Galaxies for, I mean, I've been playing at this point for over a year, but I had to play it for many months to really put that together. So it's worked out very well for us. I'm pretty confident that I would have screwed the pooch on this if I had only played the game for a week. Yeah. And I think that's it. Thank you very much, guys.